Hello and welcome to our 13th episode of the unofficial SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is October 16th, and together with Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP on Azure. Hello, everyone.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
So before we switch over to our special guest Bartosz, who will show us a few nice demos, let's quickly take a look at what happened this week. So like always, let me quickly share my screen. The first thing that I want to start with, and we talked about this already last week, but now I finally had time to actually give it a try. So if you are using platform in trial, then you can now also select Microsoft Azure in Singapore as a region. So if you already have a new or if you already have a subscription, if you just go to new sub account, then you can select now also Microsoft Azure as a provider. I mean, obviously this was already the case for the productive environment, but now also in trial, you can just select Microsoft Azure. And then right now there's one region available, Singapore, and then you can also deploy your SAP Cloud Platform on Azure. What I've not done yet, actually it's still running, then if you are in your trial, you can also enable the Kima environment. So we also talked about this in our last session, but yeah, I'm also looking forward to playing around with Kima in the trial environment, and let's see what we can talk about in some of the next episodes as well. Then the other big news, I would say, or interesting thing from this week is DSAGLive. So for those of you who are not in Germany, you might not know about DSAG. DSAG is the German-speaking SAP user group. And once a year, actually twice a year, they have some big events. One is a technical event that is typically around the February timeframe. And then they have a more generic, their main event, which is their yearly congress, congress that they have once a year. Due to Corona, unfortunately, this year, this event also had to go virtual. So they rebranded it into DSAGLive. And they had a really nice concept. So actually on YouTube already, some of these, the keynotes are available. So you can see Christian Klein was in the keynote. Thomas Sauer-Essig already was in the keynote, and they had some really nice presentations there already. They always, so starting from Monday, Tuesday, so every day they had a kickoff of some short 30-minute keynotes basically, and then they had some breakout sessions. And as part of the DSAGLive, or actually the yearly congress in general, they also release a press release basically, where they talk about some of the results that they had from surveying their customers. And that's always, at least for me, really, really interesting, because they ask, well, for example, now the effect on the Corona epidemic, basically, that is a pandemic, sorry, that is currently ongoing, and what were the results? So the effects, yeah, obviously turnover declined for a lot of companies. For some companies, there was an increase, but then also the effect of the digitalization, and that there's a huge increase due to Corona in the digitalization for companies. They also asked then, well, is there any impact on S/4HANA projects? And there as well, interestingly enough, a huge percentage, so 50% of the customers answered that the Corona crisis actually accelerated the S/4HANA implementation projects, which I found was really interesting.
And this is, I think, interesting trend overall, because all the IT projects accelerated during recent months. I'm not sure if that's really good, because I'm a bit worried that everything will be done rapidly, quickly, going strictly to deployment without having this think ahead of time what we actually want to achieve. But yeah, I think digital transformation is really happening.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
And German SAP use it's like Pandan in USA, it's American ASUG user group.
ASAC,
And
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
they're really huge. There are thousands of people generally who would come to such an events. So they are really very influential. And as you showed, I mean, the SAP board members are coming, and here the customer have really an influence on SAP. Yeah, so very, very important and valuable. I'm looking forward to technology days, how it's called, Technologie Tage. Usually it's in February. It was, let's see how it will be this year's, where it's more technical will go.
Yeah.
But very, very good content actually. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think you mentioned a very interesting point about the whole influence there, because one of the criticism that DSAG also had was, what about the whole roadmap of SAP?
Yeah.
There was a lot of mistrust in SAP's roadmap, actually, in the product strategy roadmap, and apparently, so when they released the survey last year, and apparently this year there is an increase, so there's an increased trust again. So I think one of the things that they really asked Christian Klein, that they clearly highlighted that SAP needs to change there. They need to work more on providing trust, basically in this strategy. And apparently, I mean, just look at the time that Christian is now CEO of SAP, but apparently that already was good, or is a good indication, so that there is a clear trend. Not sure if you can talk about the trend already, but at least the trust actually really increased in SAP's product strategy. So I think SAP is on a good track there. Also looking at all the integration, and I know when Bartosz talks about his demos, we'll definitely cover integration. But also there is this statement from Christian Klein that he really wants to put additional focus on making sure that the SAP products are well integrated, and there as well, there's a good feedback from customers that something is happening there. Another thing that I found interesting is this relevance of providers for digitalization for their core processes. And obviously, I mean, we are talking about an SAP audience, so obviously SAP has a very high relevance in the digitalization. But what is good for us, or what I've also found interesting, if you compare this with the other hyperscale providers, then Microsoft is a clear number second, which again for me is a beautiful indication and an action to us that we really work well together, that really Microsoft and SAP, that we put our forces together and help our customers in this digitalization. And that's really something that is these surveys, where we really see that here Microsoft and SAP, these are the two companies that the customers are looking for when it comes to digitalization. And that's something, that we're working on. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about all these integration scenarios. So,
but actually, when you say second behind the SAP, so in the context of high scaler and SAP, we are number one, so to say. We could say.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's good. I mean, but I think that also really shows. I mean, we are working very closely with SAP. And again, when we come to Bartosz's demos later on, and all the work that he's done, this is only one person within Microsoft who is doing so much in the integration area. And when we look at the work that your team is doing, Goran, or that Robert's team, or all the other, look at engineering in general, I think really Microsoft is putting a lot of effort in working well with SAP, and similar SAP is working well with Microsoft. And this is clearly something that the customers also show.
Yeah.
Or
all levels.
The times of having a single solution that holds all the data, I think this is over. I think even SAP understands this. So now it's all about integration and making the best out of all the systems that you have in the enterprise, because it's not any longer that you have SAP and nothing else. You need to ensure that all the components, the entire landscape that you have, works nicely together. And this is great, because this is what we understand here at Microsoft. I think that we can provide this platform where customers can choose solutions that fit their purpose. And this is great.
Yeah,
absolutely. Good. Two more things on my agenda. One is TechEd. So SAP released some additional information on TechEd 2020. Like all the other events, it's a virtual event now. It's a 48 hours non-stop learning event. That's how they are promoting it. Apparently, there are different tracks or different channels. One where you can just watch the keynote, strategy talks and stuff like that. And then one where it's really more deep dive, developer focus, where there are additional tracks that talk about, intelligent suite, intelligent ERP, customer experience, and so on. So I'm looking forward to TechEd. Registration is not yet open. They say, it's in early November. But I'm sure gonna register, and let's see. I'm really looking forward. I'm a huge fan of the TechEd events. Obviously, I would have loved to be there on site because I think all the networking, all the interaction with SAP colleagues, with partners, with customers is very, very important. Now it's virtual, so let's see. I'm definitely looking forward to attending SAP TechEd 2020.
Yes, and I'm so happy that this is now open for everyone. Because that always this cost of attending TechEd was high, so there was limit of participants. And I was lucky enough because I attended last year. I attended TechEd for the first time.
Oh, great!
So I'm happy I was able to. Otherwise, probably for the next couple of years, this event won't happen in person.
You have it there on the text. SAP TechEd 2020 has gone virtual and entirely free. So okay, some value of all this digitalization,
absolutely. Nice. No, that's good. That's good. I mean, I think one of the areas where SAP is trying for years now is to open up for non-pure SAP audiences. So I think if you look at something like the SAP Cloud Platform, I would say mainly SAP customers are using the SAP Cloud Platform, but there are some really fantastic features in the SAP Cloud Platform. So why should not a non-SAP developer also use the SAP Cloud Platform? And I think with events like this, where they're really open to anyone, and where you don't have this barrier of paying, I don't know how many dollars to attend, or to fly to Las Vegas or to Barcelona or whatever, and then attend this event. If it's now really an online, a virtual free event, hopefully this will also attract non-SAP developers, and they can learn about the SAP Cloud Platform. I mean, we'll definitely promote it also on the Microsoft channels, because I think, again, this combination of SAP and Microsoft makes a lot of sense. And let's hope that we'll have a good audience at TechEd.
Cool.
Good. One last thing. You might have heard that SAP HANA 2020 just got released. And what I really love is that very, very soon after, SAP S/4HANA 2020 is now also available on the SAP Cloud Appliance Library. So like always, if you just want to see what's new with S/4HANA 2020, here there are over 400 ship business roles for Fiori and stuff like that. There are lots of new things coming with 2020. If you don't only want to read about it or watch a video, but you really want to quickly test it out, then just log on to cal.sap.com, deploy on Azure, obviously, your SAP S/4HANA solution. It's free for, I think, like always, 30 days or something like that. So you can really easily test it and just get started. I think this is a beautiful way to test out new functionalities that SAP provides.
Do you know what happened to the naming convention? Because I thought that this year it should be 2010, and 2020 is a bit risky number for a product name.
I actually, now that you mention it, because you're right, there was 1909, which was the year and the month, basically.
Yeah.
Now it's 2020. I think I read somewhere why this is the case, but honestly, I cannot remember why they changed the name. But we should definitely look this up and shared with everyone later on. Good. So now it's finally time to hand over to Bartosz, and I'm sure most of you know him because I don't know how many blogs you wrote in the meantime, but your SAP on Azure series I think is really famous, and I learned a lot out of these blogs because you cover really such a broad range of integrations, and I really love the content that you are creating there. So I'm super happy that you have joined our podcast, and I'm really looking forward. You already said, or in our before we recorded this session now, you already said that you have prepared 3 demos. So I'm really looking forward to them. And yeah, with that, I'll hand over to you. Maybe you can quickly introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. So I'm Bartosz Jarkowski. I work as sub-basis. Well, I used to work as sub-basis consultant for almost 12 years. And well, one day I wanted to try something new. I wanted to install Hadoop. And I started to wonder, how can I install it? How if you are someone new in this technology, what would you do? So you can install this as virtual machine. And when I was thinking about this, it was 2016 or 2017. And just by accident, I thought about, oh, let's give it a try to Azure. And I understood that Azure is great in these scenarios where you need a lot of flexibility, where you need to try something, then maybe pause it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then start it again. Mm-hmm. And as I got deeper and deeper into this topic, I really thought that this is a great place to host SAP system because it gives you the flexibility that was always difficult to get with SAP. I think even a couple of years ago, we all treated SAP, or even now we treat SAP as this monolith system. One big system, difficult to scale, especially with SAP HANA, which I find very difficult to size. Because when you start the project, you don't know what will be the size of your system. Buying a big server because maybe in 5 years, your system will be large enough to consume, I don't know, 80% of the CPU power. It's a bit crazy. So I think that Azure is a great place for SAP. But this is just the infrastructure, and this is just part of the story. Of course, it's important, and this is usually the first step towards making SAP a bit more flexible, scalable solution. Mm-hmm. But I spent a lot of time working with customers any size, from very small customers that had tiny systems to large enterprises. And all of them suffered because it was difficult to try new things. Once they built for example, integration solution, it was no escape. Once they built a data platform solution, they had to stick to it. And one of the reasons why that's the case is the license price. And unfortunately, SAP still tries to play this game, but this is why I like Microsoft so much, because it changed the way how you do projects. Even today, I was talking to a customer, and we were talking about data. So not really integration, but data. I hope we'll have a chance to talk about this in future as well. But it's like, he's asking, how can I use all Azure services to work with the data? And I'm saying, no, you don't need to work with all services. You just select what you need, you pay per use, and that's everything. If you don't like a service because it doesn't really fulfill your requirements, then you can easily shift to something else. And Azure gives you a lot of services. So again, about the data, for example, Hadoop. You can install Hadoop on a VM using Cloudera image. You can use HD Insights. You can use Databricks, or even Synapse now, I think, supports Hadoop Spark processing. So it gives you a lot of possibilities, and it's the same story with the integration. I did a couple of projects where we had to create B2B integration. And de facto standard for integrating businesses is to send messages through AS2 channel. Smaller companies, it was quite difficult for them to sign up for it because they had to buy quite expensive licenses to enable this communication. They had to purchase servers, deploy it, someone had to maintain it. Now with Logic Apps, everything is in the cloud and you just have to press a couple of buttons and everything is working. You focus not on this boring stuff like, oh, where do I get servers from, or where do I put them, into actually building solutions that deliver business value. This is something great, and I think companies start to notice it, and this is also why this digital transformation speed up so much, because the adoption of cloud services is so high, because it really gives value to the customer.
Yeah. So basically, they have from technical perspective, it's a cloud service, no maintenance, no installation. It's, as you mentioned, pay as you go. So you use it, you pay, and even those prices are really affordable. If you don't use it, you don't pay anymore, right? So it's compared to the on-premise world where you need an infrastructure, you need to install, you need to maintenance, higher license. It's a win-win in all directions.
Exactly. Before you actually deploy the first integration scenario, you have to spend 3 months just planning the project.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And now I've built the demos I will show you. There is a couple of demos I've built previously for a couple of other occasions, but when was it? A couple of weeks ago, I discovered this great solution, S4HANA API Business Hub. I don't know how I didn't notice before. So I just couple of weeks, I think I attended one of the webinars and I was surprised to have it, but this gives great possibilities to integrate systems. And I just started doing this yesterday without, to be honest, experience in using this API hub with Logic Apps. And I was able to create this. And I'm more than happy to show it today.
Perfect. Yeah.
So let's go.
Maybe let's start with B2B scenario. So this is something I showed a couple of times already. But whenever we think about B2B scenario, how we can integrate this with SAP, the easiest way to do it is to just use IDOCs. This is a proven technology that works for many, many years. And a lot of companies still use it. I know we are changing everything to REST APIs, and this is probably the way forward. But still, if someone wants to the integration, I think IDOCs is pretty reliable technology. So let me share my screen now. Not this one.
Yeah.
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
So here is my SAP system. I still like the GUI look. I'm not the biggest fan of SAP Fiori. However, I see a big advantages for business users. I think it's this experience of being a basis guys and looking at terminals. I think GUI is still more. I like it more.
I would agree. It's a better UI than the Linux terminal.
Yeah, same here. But I have to say, Fiori is getting better and better, and I definitely can see why a lot of customers like it from a user interface, from a look and feel. The SAP GUI is good if you know what you're doing and if you are used to it. But actually, for a casual user, obviously Fiori is gold. I really love it.
And the possibilities that comes with Fiori are much broader. I like Fiori from the user experience. I think this is how it should look. From the admin point of view, I like GUI because I know what to do, what I want to do. I know where to click, and it's just easier for me.
Yeah.
So what you see now on the screen is basically a test processing tool for IDOCs, and I created a sample IDOC that I want to send to a third party. So in this case, this is existing IDOC. I just create a copy of it and click on the outbound processing. And this is the moment when the IDOC will leave my SAP system and will be transmitted to Logic Apps. Here in the internet address, you can see exactly the endpoint. So we just click confirm and get confirmation that the IDOC was sent in by HTTP protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's have a look at the Logic Apps. What happens here? So I have quite a lot of Logic Apps, quite a few, but I have 3 apps specifically for this use case. So the first Logic Apps imitates the sender system. So this is what we, as the company that initiates the connection, will use. So if we go into details, or let's have a look at the latest run and exactly go step by step what's happening here. So whenever we receive HTTP requests coming from a SAP system, we are encoding this message to AS2 format, which is de facto standard for integration. And whenever you work with these integration partners, then they will suggest you to use AS2. They can, of course, work with FTP or SFTP protocols, but AS2 is much safer because you get confirmation of the third party has to confirm that they received the message. So once we encoded the message to AS2, we can upload the file to a data lake just to have a reference. Again, data lake, cloud service, we don't have to worry about the storage. We can just put things there and later on use it, for example, for analytics or just as an archive store. And finally, we are using HTTP action to send this message to the third party, to the company that we work with.
Mm-hmm.
And this company, they can also have Logic App to receive this message. So this is a Logic App that they could use.
So now you would basically be the receiving party. This would
exactly
most likely not run in your Azure subscription, but this would run in the other parties' Azure subscription.
Exactly, and even if you look at the regions, you see that the
yes.
sender system is West Europe, and the receiver is North Europe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Again, let's have a closer look what happened here when we received the message. And this is a slightly more complex scenario. We read the message, AS2 message, because it's encrypted, it's difficult, we cannot read it. Once the message is decrypted, we can again upload this to AS2 just to have archive store. And we are sending this message to the SAP system. Again, I'm using HTTP here, but we could, for example, use Logic App connector for SAP system, which can also work with IDOCs. Depending on the use case, depending on the preference, you have a choice. Again, great thing about Azure. But at the same time, I want to send a confirmation to my partner saying, hey, I received this message. And this is how we implement this. So if this confirmation is required, then we can basically send the message back to the partner saying, yes, we received this message. And the funny thing is that we need the third Logic Apps application to actually store or receive this MDN. So if we go here to list of the Logic Apps, SAP send MDN. Actually, it should be, I think, receive MDN. We are receiving the MDN on the HTTP. We decode this from the AS2 message and we store it in the data lake. So now whenever there is a suspicion that the message was not delivered, we can easily have a look to the data lake, retrieve the MDN and send as a proof of receipt.
Mm-hmm.
And you can build this all from the user interface. You don't have to code. I'm not a developer. I don't know. I wrote a couple of small applications, but in general, I don't know how to properly work with code. So I work GUI. If I need to get to some level of details and I actually need to have a look at the code, I can easily do it from here. And I think a power user will easily be able to recognize and find a place if he has to modify something. I'm not saying Logic Apps is great for all end users, but if someone has some experience with IT or even with technologies like Excel, where you in finance departments, I saw such a crazy formulas written. I don't know if I would be able to decode what it actually does.
Absolutely. And I think
to work with Logic Apps.
Yeah. And I think if you need to go deeper, then you can still call an Azure function or something like that from Logic Apps, for example. So you could really also split this up, that you have a more casual, non-hardcore developer using Logic Apps, and then someone else doing some implementation in Azure functions. Yeah. We also, I think in last week's episode, we also showed how you can use Logic Apps on-prem, how you can use Visual Studio Code. I mean, still in preview, but still how you can use Visual Studio Code to start developing also Logic Apps. And I think it's really, like you said, for also for non professional developers, let's call it like this. There is now a chance to easily build these flows, these workflows here.
And that's the idea of the Logic App: make it easy. Basically, no coding, which is, I mean, it's enabler. You don't have to really be the developer to get something like this up and running. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Exactly, and this is great, especially in some smaller use cases where you don't want to spend 3 months just designing a thing. You just want to make it working. You have some skills, and as I said, I think if you are efficient Excel user, then you won't have any troubles with using Logic Apps or Power Platform, because basically the skills are pretty much the same, and you will immediately understand how it works. And yeah, this is great. So that was B2B integration. I did quite a few of such projects, and I hope I will still have a chance to work in this area, and I hope to see Logic Apps more and more often in such cases. I really meet with customers with new customers every week, and they are impressed with what they can achieve with Azure without thinking about those boring stuff.
Yeah. So having a concrete example, for example, to me always helped to get the idea, and out of that I could then come with the next ideas that, of course, you can't demonstrate every single use case because they could be thousands of them, but something like this with concrete use case, it's very helpful to me, just to get concrete idea. Okay, what can I do with the technology, so to say, for even other use cases.
Exactly. And now let's jump to another use case, because I think it's highly connected. We live in the world where organizations have tens or hundreds of applications. The worst thing that can happen is that they all work in isolation. They basically create data silos. This is quite often, and I think our job is actually to help eliminate those business silos, these data silos. Because if you have to maintain the same data in multiple applications, it doesn't make sense. You can easily automate this. And as an example, I deployed Dynamics 365 Business Central application. And well, we could imagine an organization that a large SAP system, but they may have some smaller applications like Dynamics for the points of sales. for example, smaller system just to make invoices or to do certain small chunk of work. And we would like somehow to integrate these systems, because in Dynamics, this might be my central place for creating customers. I possibly don't even maintain customers in SAP because this all data comes from somewhere else. So in Logic, in Business Central, I can just click create a new customer, which is also easier, to be honest, than doing the same in SAP. The website because it was 2 hours. I think we have some timeout issue. Okay, it's coming. Yeah. So let's create a new user, a new customer. Okay. Customer name, IT Solutions. A street name. Let's put my Polish address. Country, Poland. Oh, and it even suggests using the zip code. So I like Dynamics. And I think there is one more thing we have to maintain. Data is automatically saved. So now when we create this customer, there is no sense if doing the same in a SAP system. It just doesn't make sense. So I created a small logic app that can do it for us. So this is the app. And we see that as soon as I saved the customer, this is already, the logic app is already triggered. And let's have a look here. Oh, and I have a problem. What's the problem? Let's see.
Yeah, another one, maybe.
There was some missing fields with the first save, basically.
Yeah.
Yes, this is actually the interesting thing from how Dynamics works, because in SAP you have this idea of a transaction. So you open the screen, you maintain the changes, and then you save it. In Dynamics, everything is saved in real time. Yeah. So you can trigger a lot of you can trigger a lot of updates, and I think because the website with Dynamics we had to refresh it, this is why it happened. So let's do it one more time, just to ensure it's working. So we create a new customer. Okay, the name IT Solutions 2. Address, let's come up with something else. Country, again, let's choose Poland. City, Warsaw. And a postal code, doesn't matter. And the data is saved. Let's have a look again to the logic apps. It's running. And I have this delay button, delay action here, because I want to ensure that the transaction is completed at the dynamic side. So I wait a minute. I give some time to the user to actually fill all the records. Mm-hmm. And then I will process it. There is a way to modify this behavior from the dynamic side. However, I'm not an expert in Dynamics.
Potentially you could also check whether all the fields are there and only then continue to actually submit the request to the SAP system. But I think I definitely get the idea. We have a trigger, so I think that is one of the features of logic apps that we can really subscribe, so to say, to an event on the dynamic side. And once this is happening, so in our case, once a user is created, we can run through the logic apps, and within the logic app, we can have some evaluations, we can check missing fields and stuff like that. And potentially you could have some more logic in here that really validates that everything is there before actually sending it over to
yes, and this is what is missing here. I think this is addressed, yes, because you see that the city name country is not populated, even that we know possibly that was because the tax area code was not filled, but I would stop here. The interesting thing is that I'm using the business API. So in SAP system, now you have a lot of APIs available. For example, to list all of your business partners, list all of your sales orders, or just selected sales order, create new sales order. Creating sales order was always difficult using BAPIs. It was a nightmare. Now you can do it with a REST call. That's quite cool. That's quite cool. And I did one additional thing here, because this API is available directly on the S/4HANA system. Do you actually want to allow your third-party application to call directly to your S/4HANA system? No, you would like to put something in the middle to ensure that all the requests are firstly authenticated, they come from the trusted application. You can control some level of quality. So what I did, I'm using API management to expose these APIs. Unfortunately, and this is a pity, Azure API management doesn't directly support OData protocol. So the discovery functionality, for example, for APIs doesn't work out of the box. But it still allows you to create APIs and, for example, create rules around this. Only allow communication from a certain IP address or from the certain application, or you can create additional authentication layer, for example, using OAuth with Azure Active Directory. So in this case, I'm using API management to support two operations. The first one is to post data, so create new records in SAP, but as well as getting all the details about existing business partners. So this is what I've done. And now we can use a Postman service. I have it running somewhere. That's... Okay. So in this, you let's just send. And here is the body of my message. But now I can do the same with calling the screen resolution is a bit that's here. I see the API. Here it is. And we also got the same reply. So we get all the details from the SAP system. We don't have to expose SAP system to the internet to get the outcome. We can expose this API and just allow customers to create sales orders in our system as they like, whenever they need to do it, using REST API. This is great. This is powerful. We can control. We can control who can do it. We can assign roles. We can even configure how many times the API can be executed. And
Bartosz, so how did you do the connectivity to the S4 system in this specific scenario? I mean, I guess you're using a demo system, so did you just open up the firewall ports, or are you using a relay or
no? So this is of course my test system. So I'm just using internal communication of Azure and internal networking. So I don't have to do any difficult things here. This is a test system, so also the security, I don't have to pay a special attention to it. This is the advantage. However, exactly these are the reasons why you should use API, why you should use logic apps to increase the security of your environment, to limit the amount of people that can access the system. I'm always suggesting customers to use Azure Active Directory together with SAP Fiori. This is the first thing to increase the security of SAP landscape, because multi-factor authentication, that was something not achievable 5 years ago with SAP systems. Now it works pretty much out of the box within 5 minutes. And it's as Microsoft,
really one thing that you need to activate.
But I was even thinking, if I could do a contest, who's the fastest in activating MFA with Azure AD? And I wonder if I can do it in below 60 seconds. I'm pretty sure I could do it with a bit of training.
Yeah, that's a good number.
Yeah, so these are the 3 demos that I wanted to show you today.
Great.
Beautiful.
I mean, for me, it gives me really a feeling what you could do. I mean, what could you do really, and some ideas, and based on this, I mean, customer can then just explode with the new scenario, so to say. Yeah.
Yes, and
really
here
wonderful.
I created business partner, but imagine that we allow or expose all the materials or finished goods that we have available in our S4 system to the rest of the applications that we have. Then we can really have the idea of single systems of truth, and all the child systems that connect in a standard way using HTTP protocol, REST API, get the data they need, and work with it. Creating sales order, we covered this. So I think sky is the limit here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I agree. And I mean, we obviously, you only showed a small part of the things that are possible with logic apps, but there are really hundreds of connectors available, hundreds of trigger points that I can use. I mean, you showed very nicely how we can use an HTTP trigger. So when we receive the IDOC from the beginning, but then also really to listen to changes in a dynamic system, and that we can use this information then to call the REST endpoint, and that we can add easily an API management layer in front. So I think these were really beautiful demos that hopefully show what you can do, or just indicate some of the things that you can do when you use logic app as this integration layer. So I think that was really, really helpful.
Yeah, and I think you touch a very valid point, because the number of connectors we have available in logic apps is really impressive. If you'd like just to build an integration to Dynamics 365 using a SAP system, you'd probably spend weeks trying just understand the API.
Yeah.
How do you call the API? What do you have to pass? What parameters to use? With logic apps, someone already did it for you.
Yeah. And it's not just the API, it's the programming behind which you also have to do it to implement an API. And here, just you drag and drop. Okay.
Yes. And error tracing and actually corrective actions. So imagine we actually had a good example here, because that was we had a message processing issue, but we could easily add an action here to go back or to send email to the customer. Hey, we tried to do this update, but we were unsuccessful. Inform your key user that he has to look because something is wrong. And to do this change, this is literally a 60-second change, because we have already connector for for Outlook. So yes, we can just type the name.
And not only for Outlook, I mean, you could also inform him via Teams channel, or you could use Slack or whatever, or post a Twitter message for this specific user. There are all these connectors available that you can very easily use. I still actually remember one of the first hackathons that I had on a completely different topic, where we talked about the ABAP SDK for Azure. We also had a scenario that involved logic apps, and then once the participants were ready, they really started to explore what they can do with logic apps. And there's also a text-to-speech functionality available that you can send. So it's really, there's such a huge list of actions and connectors that are available. So it's very easy to use. Yeah.
So just to show you one interesting thing. So I also use logic apps to fetch data from Twitter. I then use it in the data platform, but this is this is actually a working demo. So if you tweet specific on a specific hashtag, it would update my database, and I hope we'll have a chance to do it in next maybe episode. However, I'm looking for a tweet, and then I'm using cognitive services to analyze what's inside of this tweet. I can extract key phrases. I can check the sentiment of the message, and I already know what customer likes about my product and what they dislike about my product. Just using cognitive services in Azure. Building this takes an hour, and you have actually a good AI scenario to use in your company.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's a good example.
I think there's a similar tutorial also available on this. So you're absolutely right. This is really, not very complicated. Now just think of it. If you would need to develop this from scratch, if you would really need to do this in Node.js or in C# or whatever, and you would really start from scratch. And here in Logic Apps, it's dragging and dropping a few of the available actions and then building this flow, and that's it. So really powerful. Yeah.
Cool. No,
good.
I mean, wonderful. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Bartosz.
And Bartosz, I think you already said you have so much more in the background. So I'm sure we'll see you again in the podcast.
I hope so. Thank you very much for the invitation. It was really a great pleasure for me to join you today. And yeah, I look forward to the next meetings.
Cool. Thank you very much. And then talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
You. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.